rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years, and let her sew again.
Hello everybody, welcome back. So it's been close to a week since I painted this girl and I'm ready to put her back together. It's nice if you can wait that long to put her back together after a paint job, just because that gives all of this stuff plenty of time to really cure and harden up well. So I've got my big box O parts here and I'm going to go ahead, sort them out, and I'm probably going to get started putting everything together underneath. But before I can put together the stuff down here, I'm going to have to put the stitch length in. So really, it's going to be this internal part over here that I'm going to start with this time. So right now I'm pretty much just sorting out my parts by, over there's bobbin winder and wheel. Down here is going to be the underneath that I'm going to get started with. Then up here I'm going to have all my nose pieces and everything, just so I can get a game plan of everything that needs to go somewhere in particular. So almost there, lots of pieces, and I did already clean them, but like usual, there's a good chance I'm going to need to do a finish, last second polish job on a lot of these parts just before I put them back in. Oh my goodness, what is that? I think that's the plate. Hang on. Okay, so one of the first things I'm going to do is come in here and put a bunch of oil in, because she got pretty dry when I was cleaning and stripping her and everything, but she moves very freely, so I'm not worried about that. I just want to kind of spread the lubrication around. And I'm going to also, up in this area in here, just put a little squirt of some penetrating oil just in there while it's tipped up this way, so that that oil can run towards that bushing down here at the end, and all is well. Okay, so tipping her back down to take my rings off, and looking for this bag that has my little fork in it. Here is the fork. It is clean. Let me get a little magnet dish, one of these little guys here, to put all of her associated parts into. So what I have is the little stitch length knob, the block. This is the screw that's going to go that way, and this is the bearing that is going to go onto the fork right here. So actually, put a drop of oil on there. Make sure this is going to spin. Actually, I think it goes this way. Not that there's a right or wrong side. That feels a little stiff. I'm going to play with it a little bit until this bearing wants to move freely. Okay, so I got it spinning. I had to do a little more polishing and oiling. Usually they spin easily, but this time it took a little more effort. So down here, this is going to go inside the machine this way, okay? If you can see, it's going to be in here. Now, pull it back out. This block is going to be traveling on top of that bearing, okay? And this hole here where this screw comes in, that's going to be threaded into the back here, okay? And at the same time, on this little screw in stitch length lever, you can see it's going to get put in this way. So where this little nub is on this block here, It's going to be like that, so that as you screw this in and out, it's going to move this to adjust stitch length. Lots to do. Sometimes it goes easily, sometimes it's a pain in the neck, so let me see what I can do. It's hard to do this, looking through the camera, so give me a minute with a magnet on a stick here to hold my block in place so that I can kind of position that on the right place here, and I will be right back. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see, this is the tail end of that block. So now as I unscrew this, it moves over, and screw it in, it moves back. Okay, so that is in place. I'm moving that forked shaft back and forth. It's not going to come out, so that's all good. Okay, so now looking down here at the bottom, this is what we're going to be working on next. Okay, so first I'm going to take this piece here and this big shouldered bolt, and it's going to be screwed into the casting right here. Let me get that tightened in place. Okay, so even with this tightened in all the way, you should still be able to move this very freely, okay? Next, I'm going to grab this piece, and in the casting, you'll know you're on the right side because you got this big old divot cut out there. That's what this is going to fit into, okay? So on the sides, either side over here and over here, a couple pivot points are going to go into to hold that in place. I'm just going to get those started just so I don't have to hold this upright this whole time. Oops, wrong way. It would help if I put the pointy end first. I feel like I'm getting a cramp in my hand. Okay, down here at the bottom, you need to make sure that this little polished bearing here is going to fit into the fork of this first piece that we put in, okay? So just get these pushed in a little bit more, and hey, let's use a screwdriver because that could definitely make life easier. I'm going to make sure that this bearing here is kind of centered in that little fork, and I don't want this terribly tight, At this point, I'm not trying to get my final position. I'm just getting it in place for now. These big 9/16 inch nuts, oopsie, are going to go on the outside. And again, I'm not tightening those up yet. I will soon. Put this one in over here. Okay. Now, this end of the fork that we just put in here, okay, that's going to come up, and it's going to go through the hole here, and you should have an eccentric bolt, one that is not centered. You can see that post is not centered there. It's going to go in from the outside in, and we're going to cinch that together. Okay, now just take one quick look here, if you can, right there. As I turn this bolt, you can see this is going to go up and down a little bit. Can you see that? That is the adjustment you will make later when you're dealing with your feed dogs moving forward and backward. When it comes to that point, I probably won't show you that in detail, so that's why you get it now. There is a little bolt, a little nut that comes back here at the end to hold that in place. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten up that little clamp there now that I have it on where it needs to be. But like I said, when it comes time to make that adjustment for the feed dogs, I can still, because I haven't tightened this nut yet, make this change, okay? And if that's too tight to turn, just back this out just a hair. All right, so anyhow, let me leave that for right now. And hang on, get a new position here. All right, so now I have this piece, and flat side is facing out, curved side is going towards the casting. Right, I'm gonna slide this part over that post, and this big part in the casting here, or in this piece, if you see there's a groove right there, and I'm gonna throw some oil in there too, because why not? This bearing here is gonna travel in that groove. And if you can see, I am lining up this hole with that threaded part in the casting below it. All right. And I want to get that into place. Hang on. Everything's moving very stiffly today. There is an oil hole over here on this side of this piece that I'm just going to fill up so I can turn it, and hopefully everything will get a little bit of oil on there. Okay, I need to cinch this in some more. Oops, wrong bit. That won't do very much good there. Okay, so that is in now, and I can move this over, and I have this little piece also. Okay, so now let me move you a bit here and get this hook, which is a lot cleaner now than it was before. I'm going to push it straight down so the bottom of the hook is going to come out here. And there's a hole for oil right up here, and I'm going to go ahead and put oil in there also. So as this turns around, everything's going to get nice and oily. Okay. So I'm putting this little clamp over that hole, okay, pushing the bottom of that shaft through it. And I have it on upside down, I think. No, I don't. Okay. So for right now, I'm just going to barely tighten that up because I am going to need to make an adjustment there when I am getting everything timed up. But for right now, I just want to hold that hook together. So as I turn the wheel, you can see this is moving. Okay, just double checking that everything looks somewhat kosher down here, and it does, so that's good. Okay, let me tip her back up. Actually, one of the first things I'm going to do from this side is put this little blade back on, because once I start putting the bobbin stuff back in there, it's going to cover up this little screw hole. So, you know what? Let's get the right job for the right part here. Okay, so with the little screw starter holder thingy, getting that tightened up. Wrong bit on there, so I will grab this. Alright, so now that blade is in there, I don't need to worry about that. I did, off camera, deal with this. It is all cleaned up again. Everything's, working great. I couldn't do that on camera. Life is like that sometimes. But, like usual, I will refer you to Bob Fowler's video if you're interested in seeing exactly how to take these apart and put them back together. Please look at his 66 playlists for that. Okay, so I'm just going to stick this big piece through there, and that's going to go through this hole down here. Okay, to hold that in place. Down below, underneath here, right about here, there is a hole that this screw is going to go through, just like this, and that's going to thread in and lock this in place. So I don't know if you can see, but if you look right in there, that's where I am pushing this screw in. And it is basically going to lock this little pivoting piece there in place so that that is not going to come out anymore. Okay, now the screw of death is going to go in here. I know why it was feeling odd, because I forgot to put a piece in here. Okay, so this is just the bobbin case. I just popped it in there while this is movable. What I forgot to put on was this. Okay, so this fits just over that little nub back there, and in that little slot in the casting, this finger drops through, and that lines up with that screw hole there. So I'm going to put this back in here. For some reason, not doing what it needs to do. Don't know why. I don't even know. It doesn't look stripped, but sometimes things just don't work exactly. Okay, let me get this twisted on. Now, with this screw, it's a big adjustment screw so that I can unscrew it, and there's a little spring in there that's going to hold this in place. And there's a specific amount of clearance you need for it to work in there. So for right now, I am just going to eyeball it a hair with that clearance right there. Screw this in, and again, when I come to do adjustments later, I can do that. So if I need to get this bobbin case out, I lift this finger and move it over, and then this should come out like that. And then, so I can do whatever I need to it, and then when I'm ready to put it back in, just goes in, move that over, okay? I am gonna go ahead and put my feed dogs in so that I can get my bottom adjustment set. So there's a slot right here that this bracket of the feed dogs go through, and from underneath this screw is going to come over here. Now, here we go. This is what I was looking for, the little plate that they're going to go on. I'm just going to kind of set that there for right now. And that way you can make sure that they're going to go on the correct way, okay? Because I have a habit of doing that wrong and having to take it off. So now that I know that's the correct way, I'm going to flip the machine up and put this other screw in from the bottom side. Okay, so I've got this plate just sitting on here. I can see that it's lined up with those holes. And just holding it, I can see that the feed dogs are way too close this way. They're actually rubbing up against the plate on this side. So I'm going to move them this way ever so slightly, and that is adjusting. Come on, tip down for me, guy. This big bar just slightly over this way. So I'm just going to back out the screw over here on this side a hair and tighten this side up a hair. See how that looks when I put this back on. And that looks a lot better, and it's actually traveling front to back really well also. So I'm just going to go ahead and tighten up all of these pivot points where they are. I need to get my 9/16 inch wrench here to do that, but I'm going to tighten up this bolt, this one over here, and also this nut right here, keeping this exactly where it is on this side with a screwdriver and just tightening up that nut right there. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and just put the wheel back on. So, once again, putting some oil inside of here. because when I'm stripping them, I'm basically removing all the oil in it. Okay, everything else looks good. Pop that back on there. Oops, I see a dry spot. Okay, let me pop that on there and give her a spin, which looks good. Let me go ahead and get my little wheel parts. So I have a washer, popping that on there, and this big nut. Screw it on, and then I have a little screw that's going to go in here. And like always, I have a 50-50 chance of getting that washer put in correctly. So let's see if I tighten up that screw. No, I don't have it in correctly, because even when I turn it and it kind of feels like it's going to click, it still turns. So that means I need to unscrew this. You'd think one of these times I would get it right the first time, but obviously not. And then picking this up and flipping it 180 degrees this way. Screwing this back in. And putting this little screw back in. Okay, now let me turn it. That feels good. Yeah, if I flick this, the clutch is disengaged, nothing down here is moving. I engage it, and everything down here is moving. It's just moving so freely. It's fabulous. Okay. Let me go ahead and flip her over. I do need to put her bobbin winder back together. So this is the belt guard that's going to go on here. But I'm not going to put that on until I get the bobbin winder put together, because that is what screws on to this. Okay. So let me take a few minutes and get all of these little parts organized, and we'll walk through it. Okay, so I'm putting my little washer here that is slightly curved. It's a spring washer, and it's curving towards the casting. Okay, and then this is going to go on with the little cog side down. And there's an eccentric bolt, one that is not centered, which this looks like. See? That's going to be going through here. When you turn this screw, it's going to adjust where that cog sits. So if it's so tight that it's not going to fit in, turn that screw head and it should lower it enough that it can pop down. And now that's nice and tight. So there is a little square nut. It's going to go back here, and I'm just going to put that on hand tight. Okay. Now over here goes this little follower, and this is where the bobbin's going to go, and this is going to go back and forth, not very much, just a little bit, okay? And it's going to be, this part's traveling around this smaller cog here. See on this spring, there's two little sides sticking out, okay? This side is going to go in this hole of the arm. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, I want to give this arm one more polish, but see how that little tip of the spring's going in that hole? Okay, this part of the spring is going in one of these holes right here. Well, that was a headache. What helped me is rotating this so that the part of the cog that this was following on was the smallest piece, like that right down there, so it didn't have as far to go, and that seemed to make it easier to get this lined up. So wow, that was a pain. Let me get it tightened up there. Okay, but what I want to look for right now is if I'm turning this, can I see this cog rotating? And I can, so that's good. I'm just going to take a second and clean this up and polish that little bit, and I'll be right back. All right, I've got the bigger screw here, and there's a hole on this side that I need this little piece of this spring to go into. And I'm going to bring this long part forward so it's coming out that notch there. Let's see if I can do this on the camera. I've got this spring, and I've got the long part latched down here. This sticking like so. Okay, so I can line this hole up like that. Then this is going to go through here, through this hole here, okay, keeping that little spring stuck where it is. And that's going to get screwed on here, okay? Now, I'm just going to get that kind of started. See if I can do this without scratching everything up. I think I have paint in those threads too. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. All right, we're going now. All right, so now there's this screw up here. I don't have that in all the way. I'm going to put this screw in also. And as you can see, there's an adjustable position on that. I will make that adjustment when I have this put on. Let me get this screwed on a little tighter here. Okay. Getting this started here. I'm going to just kind of put it in the middle for right now, right there, of that little travel area, just to hold it to start with. Okay, so let's see here. If when this gets tall, all right, why aren't you traveling up all the way? Oh no, this spring I have in the wrong spot. These things can drive me to drink. You know what? I need to take this off again and redo where that spring is. I tell you, sometimes these things, they go together easy, and sometimes they just don't. And I feel like this is one of those they just don't kind of times. Oh my goodness. See if 12th time is the charm here. Wouldn't that be something? All right, why aren't you screwing in correctly? Wrong bit. That's something. So as it gets fuller and fuller, this pushes up and up and up until it snaps up. Up and up and up till it snaps up. And I can see that it's just, it needs this paint right here to be gone. So I am just going to use my X-Acto knife and help it along. Okay, so here we go. That is good, and that is catching my glove. It's good. So. Okay, I gotta take these gloves off. They are just in my way. So bad, so bad. All right. I think we finally got it. So this adjustment here is for once I have it on the machine, and I honestly might as well just do that right now. This goes up on here, and I have a screw that's going to go in there, and this adjustment is for making sure that when I need it to, this wheel is engaged with this part of the balance wheel. Okay, so I had to loosen that up to get this bracket out of the way so I could tighten this up. Alright, so now when I push this down where it is right now, I want it to be engaged with the wheel. And that looks pretty good. I don't want it so tight that it's going to bind up, but just resting on there so that it's going to turn. If you can see right here watching that, it's turning pretty well there. So that is where I am going to tighten this screw up. Okay, I think that is good. We're going to call it good. I will test it out later, but if you can see this follower, something is not right because it's sitting on the ground here. Okay. You can see that follower is slowly going back and forth. Okay, just very slowly because it doesn't have a long ways to travel. Okay, let me do the nose. I haven't even gotten started on that yet, so I need to tip her upright. Okay, I'm going to get started with just the background things in here. So first is going to be this lifter lever that's going to go in here, and I have a little screw that goes through that hole right there. Okay, so you should be able to tighten it all the way and still have it move very freely, so that's good. Then the next thing I'm going to do is put the little tension release Y piece in here. There's a little screw that's going to go through that hole, but on this little nub there, this spring is going to get attached like that. This presses up against the casting over here. Okay, so let me get this little screw that I just dropped started in that little hole. So here we go. All right, she's started now. All right, so that's going well. So if I lift this, it's going to push on that. That's what I want. Okay, I need to work on my presser bar. Alrighty, so I'm just going to slide my bar through here. I have my washer. Good night. That's a dirty washer. Hang on a second, let me clean that up. Okay, sliding that washer on, and then the spring. Okay, and then this block. It's going to go through here. I need this block to be able to slide up and down that area over here, and it looks like it will. Okay, and then the whole thing is going to come down. Oh my goodness. Hang on a second. Alright, so I've got all of that in. Everything's moving around very freely. I'm just going to put the very top of the threads of this finial in just so I don't lose them. Okay, and I've got this little set screw that's going to go here to lock in the presser bar. And at this point, I'm not sure of the exact height. I'm just going to kind of set it there so I don't lose it. We do have a thread cutter, which I will include back, and a really modern presser foot. Even though this is an old machine, it had a modern foot. A little bit worse for wear, but still very functional. So that's going to go on. But first, before I put that on, I am going to work on the needle bar, which is over here. Okay, so let me get all of these pieces out. Actually, I need to go in the house and take care of some stuff for a while. So since I'm going to be gone, I'm going to go ahead and put my medallion back on. So I'm using my little brads with the flowers that we've punched into them, and put a little drop of clear epoxy in those holes. And then with my masking tape that I'm folding in half, sticky sides together here, I'm going to use that to put over it and just secure it in the back, just enough pressure to hold it while that epoxy is going to set, so that, oopsie, so that that medallion will want to stay on in the right position. So right like that. Might put one more little piece right there just to hold that tape to the guy together. I don't want to put the sticky side of the tape onto the machine, but that will work. So I'm going to go in the house for a while, and I'll either be back out later this afternoon or tomorrow, but I want to wait until this is completely cured. I was just about to go inside, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to pop the tension in. And I was looking at this and realized that I need to get my needle bar stuff in before I deal with this, because this presser bar is blocking it. And I know that. I've done this enough that I know that. And I do this all the time. And you would think I would learn by now, but I must just have this subconscious thing where I enjoy doing things several times in a row. So, you know, just to let you know, this is coming out. I will be putting it back in the way you just saw a second ago, but for right now, it's going to come out. And, but I have my washer stuck in there. But I did put my tension back in. I just kind of reversed the process of how I took it out. So I've done many 66 tensions before. So anyhow, that's back in. Now I'm going to go take my break, and when I come back, I'll put the needle bar back in, and then I'm going to put the presser bar back. Hello and welcome back. So I got myself some lunch, and I kept thinking about this machine, and so I decided, you know what, I'm going to come back out here and get it cleaned and get the all this stuff put together in here. So you can see I just threw some oil on there. These are all my pieces, okay? So basically I cleaned them while they're apart, but I'm going to try to put them all together as one big unit. And I need to turn this so that that hole is on the bottom, because that will make my life easier. So this screw up here, this big shouldered one, I'm going to put some oil in that hole. All these little holes, that's for oil. So I'm just going to spin that around, spin this around. I think we're pretty good here. Okay, up here, this big screw is going to go in that hole. And let me just get that barely started to be threaded there. Over here, there's a screw that's going to come in from this side, and let me pull it out. On here you can see there's a flat part. That's what that set screw is going to go up against. So I'm just going to kind of push it in there that way. Oops. Come on, work it down, work it down. Why aren't you going down, little screw? I think I need to tap it. Hang on. I don't know why, with this machine, everything's going in a little harder than a lot of other ones. But anyway, all right, so let me get this screwed down here. And even with this one cinched in all the way, this still should move freely, okay? And I want to get this up so that I can reach through this hole over here to get to my set screw. Okay, I've got it started with my screwdriver. I need to make sure that that flat part is up against there. So hang on one sec. I should be at about the right angle. I'm hopeful that as I get this cinched in, it's going to push against that flat part and kind of balance it out. Okay, watching this. See how it's turning on its own? It's pushing that flat part in to get to the position it needs to be. All right. So this is the clamp that my needle bar is going to go into. So I'm just going to put a little oil on there also, because that's going to make everybody happy. Let me tip this down. Oops. This needs to stay down here. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay, now getting my needle bar here. Okay, the part that has the little flat cutout, that's up. This part here, that's down. So I'm just going to push it through that clamp and all the way through this. All right, the back of this needs to be behind the needle bar clamp, so I'm turning it so that that flat part is towards the back of the machine, just pushing it down. You should be able to see this little ridgy part sticking out. And this screw, this long one, is going to come up from the back. Let's see if this little guy here will work for me. I'm going to put it up through this hole in the back here. I need this clamp to be at its lowest position, right there. Scoot this down a bit. Right about there, I think. Put my little screw up in that clamp so I can reach the back. And I did get it started threading, and I'm just going to keep spinning it until I hit any kind of resistance. There you go. And get a different screwdriver here to cinch it up just a bit. I need to be able to make an adjustment in my needle bar height eventually, but I think for right now that's pretty good. As soon as I put my presser bar in, that's going to take up the difference here, so that shouldn't be knocking. So this is that cap up on top. I'm just going to go ahead. Can't remember if that pressed down from the top or up from the bottom. I'm going to call it this way, so I'm going to go ahead and tap that in. Oh my goodness! I just realized I forgot to put this on. This pops over that bushing. So, the easiest way to do this would probably be to unscrew. Do you ever get tired of me undoing things 3 times? Well, just fast forward this part. Okay, so I'm pulling this screw back out. See, not every 66 has this little timing gauge that I'm about to pop on, so I forgot it. This is going to pop over this little bushing here, and I need to get that out of the way, and it just pushes over. It's open in the back, kind of like a spring. All right, I've got that pushed on there. And so I need to get my needle bar put back in. I can figure out where I put it. I didn't put it anywhere, it's just hanging out here. Maybe I need to just quit for a while and go get some coffee. I think that might be a good idea. All right, let me lower this down to its lowest spot again. Getting this kind of in the right position here again. And tightening up this screw in the back. And this looks a little high to me for some reason. I don't know why it's just coming to a stop. So let me go ahead and back this screw out the rest of the way and see if I can just tap it down. I experience they're usually only sticking up maybe like 1 millimeter or so. So I'm gonna just tighten it up at that point. And again, I can make that adjustment. And I'm done with all of this. So tightening up, righty tighty. This screw back here. And cinch it in. Okay. Now that is done. All I have down here is thread guide, needle clamp, stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put my little cap back in up here. And I'm just tapping it in with my little nylon tip of my hammer. I think that is good. Okay, putting these aside, going to get my presser bar back out, do the exact same thing I did before, which you do not need to see, and I will be back shortly. Now, I'm not doing this everything 100% accurately right now, but just to get a rough idea, I just popped my little presser foot on here, pushing it down up against those feed dogs so I get an idea of where I need to put my little set screw here. And here it is. So I'm just going to pop that in and tighten it up. I'm under here and I was looking and I just realized I don't have that flat screw in that goes here. And I don't remember seeing it as I was going through my bags, and I just rechecked my baggies. So I do have a set of 66 parts. And this looks like that screw, so I'm going to go ahead and polish it up and put it on there. And maybe if the other one ever shows up, I can just replenish my little parts stash here. Okay, so down here, I am going to put this little thread guide on. Okay, so this needs to be able to come all the way up here. I'm just going to go ahead and get that in place first. Where that little divot is, that's where this clamp screw goes on. Okay, and then this is going to go on here like that. And I had it on at a weird angle before, and I couldn't get my little thread clamp on. So if you're like me, put the clamp on first and then give this a go. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put these plates on so I can get my presser foot. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm going to throw my needle in here and get that hook timed up. That's what I'm going to do. All right, so at this point I've got my plates on and I'm going to adjust my presser foot. So with my feed dogs in their down position, okay, I'm putting my foot above it. All right, so I have the feed dogs in the down position. This is all the way down. I'm actually going to push that down a bit. I'm going to go ahead and push this down a little bit more. And, oh my goodness, come on, Marie. Tighten it up. Okay. So it's going to be really on there good and tight. And when I lift this up, if you can see, it does release my tension. So that's good. I don't see any problem with that. I want to test it out just to see if she's going to sew. So let me get her front plate on, get her little front screws on, because I need all of that to run the thread through. And I need to put thread on her bobbin. So we'll see if that bobbin winder is going to work. Okay, so I don't have her on my treadle table yet, but if you can see, as I turn it, it is loading that bobbin, And the little follower is going back and forth. And it looks like it's loading it very evenly. So that's good. Very happy about that. So let's just pretend that that is enough thread on that bobbin and it's going to be full, and this is going to push back and it snaps up, okay? Looks like I need sharper scissors here. I'm going to pull this off. This is a brand new bobbin that I had. So if I put it down here, I just want to see if she's going to actually sew. That slid off way too easy. I think I have to adjust this little blade needs to be centered exactly, and I think only half of it is centered. So I'm gonna move this out of the way, loosen up this little screw, and I'm going to push it over just a hair so that it feels like it's sticking up on both sides. Well, I think that my blade just might be a little imperfect. That's okay. It's still going to work well. All right, let me put this bobbin in here. And I have not checked to see if I have this tension right at all. It honestly feels kind of stiff. So I may need to adjust that. There's a little screw over on this side, and if you look, it's there's like a notch cut out here, so you can put your screwdriver there, reach in, and just make that adjustment without having to pull anything out, which is kind of handy. That looks all right. Okay, let me go ahead and thread her up. This is on upside down. The spring is on upside down. Oh my goodness. Do you ever just wonder at yourself? Okay, so I don't have my tripod over here, so I'm just holding it. So let's see. You can see she is sewing actually really nice. If I can flip this up, there is the top, there's the bottom. Looks really good, really balanced. And I just have her on my little, universal-ish treadle here. So I think that she is good to go. She is about 100 years old. What was she, 1925? So it puts her 99 years old. I think that we're going to call her Roni. I don't know if it's Roni or Roni, but I'm going to call her Roni. Like that, just like Roni says kind of song. But I think that she's beautiful. I hope you like her. I'm going to give her glamour shot, and we are going to call it good. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.